The world is commemorating Women's Day, March 8, for the 113th time today. As the world comes together to honor and celebrate the achievements, resilience, and contributions of women globally, we also take a moment to reflect on the challenges and injustices that women continue to face. The war waged on Tigray in November of 2020 was characterized by widespread killing, destruction, looting, and sexual violence. As the world marks International Women's Day on March 8, celebrations in the war-ravaged Tigray have been overshadowed by the harrowing accounts of survivors of sexual assault. Hundreds of thousands of women were subjected to horrendous sexual assault and atrocities and continue to suffer as external forces occupy areas in Tigray. Despite the challenge they face, many survivors are speaking out, sharing their stories to demand justice as the perpetrators seem to continue their spree without any obstacle. Nothing has been done to serve justice to survivors in Tigray. What was done on the people of Tigray, especially the women, is unimaginable. I'm one of the hundreds of thousands of survivors of violence. In 2023, Eritrean soldiers poured acid all over my head and burned me alive, but so far, nothing has been done to hold them accountable. Founder and director of Huya charity organization Masarat Haddush works on the healing and reintegration of survivors of sexual violence. She advocates for this year's March 8 celebration to prioritize the demand for justice, emphasizing that many women continue to live in misery, grappling with the traumatic aftermath of gender-based violence despite the signing of a peace deal. This year's March 8 commemoration should be all about calling for justice. The suffering in Tigray should be recognized and acknowledged by not only the federal government, but by international organizations and influential persons all over the world. Almost 95% of women in Tigray are living in dire situation. So this day should be about addressing all of this. Masarat highlights that numerous women continue to languish in the hands of external forces as parts of Tigray still remain in the hands of non-ENDF forces. She cautions that everyone should come together to amplify their voices this March 8. We should not be only speaking about women that are living in areas under the administration of Tigray government. We have women that are still living under the oppressive presence of external forces. We can only imagine how they are living and the pain that they're going through because we were once under the occupation of these forces. We should remember these women and ask questions about their whereabouts and well-being on this day. We should be their voice and request justice for them and the women who were displaced from their homes, women that are still living inside tents and starving to death. In many cases, survivors of gender-based violence, often marginalized and left to suffer in silence, are finding empowerment through International Women's Day. The survivors and their supporters say days like this serve as crucial opportunity for individuals to use their voices to speak out against all forms of injustice, stand in solidarity with those who are suffering, and strive towards creating a world where everyone feels safe and respected. The people of Tigray in general were killed, abused, and starved to death. So we should demand and fight for justice together. The international community also needs to acknowledge and recognize the crimes committed on the women and people of Tigray and need to hold all perpetrators accountable. We can't be a voice for the women of Tigray if we have the mentality that it's not our problem because we weren't physically abused by the perpetrators. We have several women who had been physically, psychologically, and economically abused. We have to echo our voices for their sake. We are still in survival mode. We still have women that are starving to death and dying due to lack of medication. So our first response must be helping these women stay alive. ምግብና መድኃኒት ማግኘት እንዴት ይችላሉ?